So I just recently completed Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, and I wanted to discuss something that was quite interesting. And I streamed basically the last level of the game, the last boss fight. And I put that video up on YouTube. That was last week's video. And a lot of people mentioned in the live chat there my continued persistence to try and beat this boss fight. A lot of people mentioned that, oh, I would have just turned the game off and I would have walked away and, I would have broke my controller even. And, Sekiro is made by From Software, who are the masters behind, very challenging games. That's sort of their art. That's what they do, is they make these really challenging, gruesome games that you have to really perfect and master in order to see it through. At the same time, I have to say that they're kind of in a genre of their own, which is sort of why I like them so much, because they're unlike a lot of other games on the market, And yes, they're a very challenging experience, but I enjoy that factor because of the different gameplay experience I do get because of that. It's like you can't just sit there and just kind of coast through and mindlessly play. You are required to pay attention, to read your enemy's inputs, and to make sure that you deflect as well as counterattack when the time comes. Now, this level of commitment to understand the game and where it's coming from and where all those attacks, of course, are going to land is what contributes to this game being so grueling difficult. Again, it is unlike any other game that you sort of play, and this is what I really like about the From Software games is you can't really say, oh, it's just another FPS or it's just another third-person shooter. There's actually some variation to what's going on, and that is something I always appreciated about their game design there. But, I want to go back to the point, which is more specifically how we all handle raging. Now, I myself used to rage when I was younger. In fact, that they are present in some of my videos even, where I would discuss, or rather yell, obscenities and cuss words and everything like that when I was playing some of these games. In fact, some of my earlier multiplayer footage back from 7 years ago contained a lot of that, style, where I would just be super angry whenever I died. And I guess, it's sort of like a maturity phase. As I got older, my interest in multiplayer gaming kind of dwindled down, and I started realizing that I really love games for the storytelling aspect, which is why I'm constantly playing single player games. And, I'll play some of these big budget multiplayer looter shooter type games like The Division 2 and, Anthem and whatnot. But I'm usually playing by myself. I don't ever squad up with someone. I just, sit there and experience the game as if I was just playing on my own, at least as much as I can throughout the entire experience. And that's just, for me, gaming's really, it's a good time where I can sort of connect with different characters and what they're going through and get myself emotionally involved in something. And to an extent, it can, teach me it can influence my life and teach me new things and have me think about things I normally otherwise wouldn't think about. And so when it comes to me, raging these days, I don't really do it that much. I'm much more calm and patient when it comes to games. And a lot of games, like for example Sekiro, when it comes to a really difficult game like that, if I'm having difficulty, I have no problem just turning it off and continuing. And maybe it's because I don't have that competitive nature of when it comes to games, or if I'm playing Call of Duty, for instance, or Battlefield, it's like I'm not sitting there playing to win. I am playing and participating in whatever game mode that I'm playing with. And yes, there is a goal in mind, an objective to win the competition, but it's not like it's the end of the world for me. It's like, it's a video game. I'm not going to spend so much of my time and effort really, really cussing out at something on my TV screen. But I know that for a lot of people, it's different. Some people are much more competitive. They take it much more seriously. And I've seen, friends of mine firsthand who just the slightest thing just ticks them off, and I'm just, a relaxed person. So for me, it's like I don't really get it because, okay, I used to be like that. There was an argument. You can always make an argument for me that, okay, you used to be like that. But it was so long ago, and I propelled past that, and my behavior pattern has changed dramatically. The reason I play games has changed dramatically. And for me, it's just much more of a, hey, I'm going to sit down, relax, experience something amazing, and then just kind of move on with my life. Really looking to get as emotionally involved as possible. And I guess for some people, they don't have that intimate connection with their entertainment. It's sort of like, I'm going to watch something just to watch something, and I'm just going to play something just to play something. I'm bored, I'll play with my friends, whatever, and then you guys are all having fun, but then something happens and it ticks you off, and the only way you know how to react is through yelling and smashing your keyboard or your controller or whatever the case may be. And in reality, it's not like you're playing and you're betting actually money. It's not like you're playing in a real competitive space. You're just at your home, so you're in a chill atmosphere. Nothing's going on. You still have to work. You're not going to lose anything if you lose the game. Besides, I guess your kill to death ratio going down if that's what matters to you. But again, like, these are like things that in a real world situation mean nothing. It doesn't matter how terrible I am at Sekiro or Call of Duty, or how good I am at other games. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. They don't help me they don't help me when it comes to my financial status. They don't help me when it comes to, I guess, my lifestyle. I get the experience of it, is something that I enjoy. But you guys kind of get what I'm saying. It's not like my life's going to be completely different if I lose a game. And I think for a lot of us, our lives wouldn't be affected at all if we just lost the game. Yet we put so much effort and energy into, making sure that we prove ourselves for something that is superfluous and doesn't mean much. And so I really wanted to sort of pose the question here. It's more of a question of how you guys handle that anger, how you guys handle that frustration. Now, it's going to happen because games are so involved, right? We put so much of ourselves, and even if you are passively experience a game, like your mind's turned off and you're just, okay, I'm just pushing the buttons. I mean, you're still involved somewhat. There's still triggers happening in your mind when you see a person on screen, okay, push this button to fire the gun. There's still some involvement in place. You can't just sit there and just daydream about something. You're not going to be doing anything. So there is a level of commitment involved in video games, and maybe it's because of that commitment and because of how much games require from us for our inputs and whatnot. We get so triggered and angry over some, in reality, some stuff that doesn't really matter, and isn't really going to affect our lives regardless. And so it's an interesting question. It's an interesting topic. I wanted to sort of see everyone's thoughts here. What do you feel, what do you feel is that breaking point for you? For me, it's like, okay, if I spend a lot of time into something, like the last boss for Sekiro, I was fighting that boss on Thursday, which was 4th of July that day, and I played him for probably about 4 or 5 hours that day, probably 4 hours, I would say, because I got to him on that day, and then I had the remainder of the night, right? So I probably played him for 4 hours on that day, and then what I did is I took a break for the entire weekend. I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2, a much more relaxing game, and then I came back on Monday, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna beat this guy, and I played him for another 2 hours, and that's when I was live streaming, and I eventually beat the boss, but a lot of people saw, there are points where I got very close. I got very close to that game, and yeah, I was like, nah, I yelled, and there's many points in that video where I am indeed yelling, but it's more of the excitement of the boss battle, and oh my god, I was so close, because at the end of the day, it's like you're experiencing something, and it's meant to be engaging, and yes, it's meant to be hard, and it's designed that way on purpose, and so you really can't get angry at it because it's supposed to, it's supposed to promote that behavior within you, and it's supposed to, you're supposed to feel that way. That's the joy of those games, so to speak. So for me, that was sort of the one time where I got super angry. I would say the last game where I got very annoyed and where I actually was yelling and I was making a lot of noise was the last couple races in Need for Speed Payback. Need for Speed Payback has literally, and what really the tipping point for me when I was playing that game was when I saw that the AI drivers didn't have to drive through the checkpoints. I literally saw this guy. I had to drive around this mountain, right, to get to the checkpoint. And I saw this guy because there's an opening in the center, literally drive straight past the checkpoint that was on the side that I had to drive through. And it still said that he was in front of me. And so it was like that at that point when I realized that the AI could literally cheat the system, and it's programmed to basically fake its way through playing the game. And then the fact that, of course it was using rubber band physics, so you had these slow ass cars which you knew were slow, coming up and speeding up behind your ass. It was extremely annoying. But that was like the last game, because that was something that was a flaw in the game design that I felt, it was purposely cheating its way through to make it more difficult. And for me, it's like I'm always a fan of strategic difficulty, which is what Sekiro really is. It's strategic difficulty. You cannot just sit there and attack everyone until they go down. You have to pay attention. It requires damn near perfection to get through that game. And it's a fun experience, and you get that amazing a sense of accomplishment. When you finally beat the game, you're like, wow, that was an incredibly difficult game, and I toughed through it. And then, there is a sense of accomplishment there. Again, it doesn't mean anything when it comes to the real world situations, but it's fun, And again, that feeling is something that no other game has really replicated for me, that has ever dealt with that. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Very curious to hear what your thoughts are. How do you deal with rage? What was the last game you really raged hard at? And do you still feel like you raged, or have you like matured and moved on from your life? Really interested in hearing what you guys think. All right, have an amazing day, all of you, and upcoming weekend. I'll be back next week with another interesting topic. Thank you.